You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc. And hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Remember last time? Remember last time when we recorded? And I was like,
tell everyone
I'm
that joke.
And like, I'm definitely like, I'm not diagnosed dyslexic, but like,
you know, I changed my Instagram because of you, and so many people could not get my name right.
That's not what this is the more than okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll see that.
Very nice.
Well, let's roll into it.
Okay.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We are up at our beautiful agency office today with return guest, Mr. Jared Kinley, who is a photographer who's taken photos of me twice, maybe?
Yeah.
Someone asked me, was like, are you a model? Jared's taking photos of you. No, that's way out of context.
You know what? You did really well. I could consider you a part-time model, maybe.
Well, I'll take that.
Maybe,
exactly. It's a stretch. But mate, thanks for coming back. Thanks for coming up to the office. Excited to dive into your new photo project. But before we do, you just come back from Europe, and would love to hear about your Euro trip and how you kind of draw inspiration from Europe, because that's part of my, I'm from the UK.
Yeah.
I know how it is over there and the history, but love to hear about it from your eyes as a photographer, as an Oklahoman, as someone who, this was your first trip, right, out of the country?
This was my first trip out of the country as an adult. Yeah. I went to Mexico on a cruise with my family when I was 12, and I got sick on the cruise, so I don't really consider that a trip. So, just a little backstory. I told you before that my best friend had just moved to Germany, and so this trip came about because we wanted to go see him, and then we're like, well, what can we do in Germany? And it was about the same time as Oktoberfest.
Oh.
And so we went to Oktoberfest in Munich.
Oof. That's a big box tick.
That was 100%. Yeah, it was definitely a dream bucket list for a lot of people, and I got to do it on my first Europe trip. But we actually spent time in Dublin, or just Ireland in general. And then went over to Germany for Oktoberfest, and then actually made a brief stop in Austria, right there by the Swiss Alps. And I'm trying to remember why we went there. I think because it was the hometown of Mozart.
Okay.
And we went to go just see around that for we were there for a day, and then made it back to Germany.
Yeah. And you went with a big group?
Big group, yeah. So a big group of really great friends, other artists, creatives, and just other friends of Connor, my friend who went to Germany.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's like, I would have never wanted to do that by myself. We were gone for over 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're in a big group like that, it makes sense, especially if a big group of great friends.
Yeah.
It makes sense to do it. But solo, it's tough doing it solo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I would have never, I mean, I haven't really used public transportation. That was probably one of the biggest changes. Going over to Europe was taking trains, planes, taxis. Never really did that. I mean, Oklahoma, everyone's got a car, bike, or something,
Don't
right?
use public transport.
No, I haven't even ridden on the new tram that they put downtown, and I live right by all the stops.
Yeah. So great Euro trip. What was kind of it? How do you draw inspiration from that as a photographer?
Man, I'm a big history guy. I'm from the East Coast. I was born in South Carolina, and I moved to Oklahoma in 2012. But South Carolina, along with just the East Coast in general, has so much history, and I love looking back at. I draw photography inspiration from older photographers, and so I love going back to even their the countries they're from. One of my favorite photographers, Helmut Newton, is German, and so just going back to a place where he's from and seeing kind of how he came up or where he came up is just really cool to see.
Did you do any camera shopping or go to any?
I went to the Leica store, which is funny. I can't think of the town we were in. 2 weeks of almost everything new every single day, so it's hard to I'm still waiting for my film to get developed to see all the places I went. But went to a Leica store. Tried to stop into some other stores, but the only cameras that really interest me these days are older ones, and so I only stopped in the ones that had older cameras. Like there were some old rolling cameras that are just these beautiful box cameras with twin lenses and. In Germany, I was like, man, if I just had an extra 1,200 pounds, I'd do it. It's coming back home with me. But I did go in the Leica store. They had a Leica gallery, talked to the people there. I don't even shoot 35, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity of going to an actual Leica store.
Yeah, because Leica is like,
it's like the pinnacle full frame 35 millimeter camera.
Yeah.
Whereas like I have Hasselblad, this is what I shoot on, and that's kind of pinnacle medium format.
So money, no object. Because you're a lover of historical older cameras.
Yeah.
Would it be a historical Leica that you get?
No, I have my dream camera.
You do have it?
Yeah, I finally bought it, and I bought it from a guy locally in Oklahoma. So it's called a Hasselblad 500, see him specifically, and it was made starting in 1969, and it's the same camera manufacturer that took the photos of the moon landing.
Oh.
And I always like to tell people that, and I like to hear, do you believe
conspiracy?
in it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Every single time someone says something to me, and it's either going haywire conspiracy or, oh yeah, cool. Yeah. It's pretty fun. So that was my dream camera. It's always been my dream camera since I started.
Amazing.
And then I finally got it last year, and it's been what I've shot all my projects on recently.
Which we're going to get into for sure. I'm looking up. I should have looked this up before we started recording. I'm going to look up when... 11/22 of 2019 was when we first did the podcast. And
really?
It's episode 102.
Wow.
I will link that below for people listening who haven't heard your backstory.
Wow.
Because we won't have to repeat that. But that was 5 years ago. Right?
It's wild to think about, yeah.
11/22 was 26. Yeah,
I was trying to think of when it was. I remember going back and it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago when we started talking about this. I'm like, I just want to remember what I said. And then I turned it on. I was quickly like, I can't listen to this. I've grown so much. Yeah. Like I've matured so much. It's just like a photographer, artist in person. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. So from listening to that, then what is the big things from those last 5 years that you feel like you have matured in as a photographer, not just like personally, but professionally as well?
Professionally, I think I've just become more intentional on what I want to do. I have a really good game plan about every single photograph I take these days. Whereas before, it was very much I think I know what I'm doing. And a lot of the times I would just go out and just do a photograph. Whereas now that doesn't even cross my mind.
Right.
Like I will plan a shoot for a month that takes 5 minutes to photograph before I go out and just randomly shoot.
Yeah, it doesn't take 5 minutes though.
No, it doesn't. Come on.
We've got some great shots
for 12 photos.
Definitely.
That's the funny thing.
But then that's the beauty of like the process, right? And I had Lou over on the podcast, and he's recently got back into film photography because he's an automotive photographer. And a lot of his stuff has to be super fast shutter speed, spinning tires, cars doing burnouts, drag racing.
Yeah, my camera doesn't shoot fast enough to do that.
But he's gone back into like the art form and loves the process now of exactly what you said, planning a photo. Yeah. And then going done.
I think there's a big difference from just snapping a picture to actually taking a photograph. And I like to call it more along the lines of creating an image, because it's not just, there's so much more behind the scenes for a much bigger photo shoot.
Yeah. So over the last 5 years then, what would be some of your favorite highlights or highlighted moments that you've had that you're like, this was a top day in the last 5 years?
Like a top photograph?
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything. It could be a top day, it could be big, just kind of life things that have happened as well over the last 5 years that you're pumped with.
I could tell you some of my top photographs, and it might jar a memory. I mean, recently this whole project I've been working on has taken me all over Oklahoma, which I think has been one of the coolest things. Just because I love hiking. When I first moved here, I went to every state park I could. And so doing that again is just bringing back some great memories. But probably some of my top photographs that I could say I have is I have a photograph called Showgirl's Kiss. Okay. And that was probably one of the first photographs that I took that sold in a gallery that I was like, this is what it feels like to be a professional. This is what it feels like for people to want photographs on their wall taken by you. Yeah. And it's a weird and very wonderful feeling all at the same time. That was probably, the first big photograph. I think there's a couple copies of that hanging around the city right now, which is really cool. One being a 40 by 50 hanging up in JRB, which is a very big photograph. Yeah. And man, I'm trying to think. Every photograph for me is so fun to take. And that's probably another thing that I would say changed a lot. It's not that I dislike doing photography by any means, but it's like, because I am so intentional on every photograph, I'm so excited to shoot what I've planned to do. Yeah. But yeah, I've been traveling a decent amount, just Europe in general. Oddly went to North Dakota for the first time. I don't want to hate on North Dakota, but it's not at all what I expected. I was taking my girlfriend Elaine, and we were driving up there, and I was like, these mountains, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be vast. You're going to love it. We get there, it's flatter than Oklahoma. I asked the people what they do there for fun. They're like, we just sit here and drink. Nice. And we go to a lake in Nebraska. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. You
guys are really living.
Yeah, killing it over here. It was a cool trip. But just going to random places. I went back to South Carolina before, this hurricane has taken it underwater. Luckily, my family's all fine who live in Florida and South Carolina. So, I just, getting around, seeing things, doing things, taking a little bit break, not necessarily from photography, but trying to shoot every single day. I now just shoot whenever I'm excited or inspired, which is often a lot of the times, but I also find other things to do. Yeah. Actually, a big event, I just thought of it. I knew I would. I've been racing sailboats. Oh. For the last 4 years. Okay. At Lake Hefner every Wednesday. Yeah. I am the guy at the front of the boat who's putting up who's trying to wobble on deck and not fall off, and put up the third sail that makes you go quicker. And I've been doing that for 4 years, the exact same position, all 4 years. Okay. And I finally, the fourth year, got good at it. And I was so inspired because I wanted to be better for the team I was sailing with. I got my own boat. Because I just wanted to get better at sailing, and I wanted to know what they were doing. And then also I just wanted a boat because it was so much fun being on the water, and I didn't want to wait every Wednesday. I wanted to, grab Mikey or, whoever my friends are wanting to go out, and would go out and have a good time. Yeah, we wouldn't even race. We would just go out and sail. Yeah. So that might be the biggest thing that I think probably changed my life, was getting a boat. Just like, it's been a whole lifestyle. It's not just like, oh yeah, I have a boat now. It's like, I have delved deep. I'm like, next year I'm buying a boat and living on it. Yeah. It really became a big passion. And it might be the first thing that I was super passionate about outside of photography.
Which is great, because you need that release.
Yeah, right? I've never had that.
Yeah, and you might take a camera with you, but it's not work.
There was a year, I think it was right before we did our podcast, that I actually took a year off of photography because I was so burnt out on it, because that was all I did. And I was shooting a lot of commercials that I wasn't super excited about, but like now I'm really, I've got something that I can do that's not photography. It takes my mind off it. I have no thoughts on making money on it as well, which is the best part. And as much as I love photography, it is my full-time job. And so it's like I rely on that for money. And with this boat, I'm just like, I just get to go chill.
Dude, that's awesome.
Drink a couple of beers or something with some buddies and just go out and sail.
I mean, let's go dive into the boat thing because that fascinates me. I'm not a lover of the water, just because
me neither.
I just don't. But
me
the thought,
neither.
I do like from what the shots I've seen of you out there, and just like it's kind of not that it's always flat calm in Oklahoma, but when it is flat calm and you're out there, which is not good for sailboats, but like I like that, like looking at the water when it's flat calm.
Yeah.
What's it like? I mean, so you were on a team first.
Yeah, I started off. I made a joke on Instagram saying I want to get into sailing. Yeah. I don't even know how. I have no idea where this inclination came from. It was like, I want to get into sailing. Can someone teach me how to sail? And somebody from the boat club who's also a photographer, who's just a friend of mine, was like, yeah, we're looking for younger members at the boat club. If you want to come on out, you can hop on someone's boat. And they would love just to have an extra hand helping sail, because you need 3 people when you're racing. We're racing in a 22-foot class, and so the boat's just big enough to where you need 3 people to do it.
Is it like out and back? I mean, what's the
they set
changes?
markers.
Okay.
So they set markers, and it's basically a bunch of big loops.
Yeah.
So upwind and downwind and things like that.
Lake Hefner?
Lake Hefner, yeah.
Okay.
And I say Lake Hefner, probably everyone's like, is that like really big enough to sail on? But racing, it's big enough to go down and back. It's 10 miles around. So I mean, like, it's big enough to race. I mean, you're not gonna, I've spent all day on the lake, but it's not like you're gonna go adventuring. But it's definitely a great lake. It's actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the 3rd best lake in the U.S. for sailing.
Okay.
Because it's always windy here.
Always.
Lake Hefner is built on a hill.
Yes, it is.
And for the most part, the water levels don't change.
Okay.
For the most part. I will tell you right now, the water levels are real low.
They're low right now.
They're real low.
I know that. Yeah, yeah. Because I remember being my first time out here. I was playing golf.
I've drank far too much coffee. My hands are shaking. Yeah, I knew that would happen.
That's all right. I came out here freshman year, fall of 2011, and that was when there was a big drought, and you could like walk like for 100 yards out of the lake.
Yeah.
But obviously now it's much better generally. So how long? What's the gap between you doing the team thing and then thinking I need to get my own?
I raced for 3 years before I got my own. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say 3 years, but there's a season, right?
Yeah,
I can't remember the exact dates, but I think it's based April to September or something like that. So you race every Wednesday, unless for some reason there's no wind, which is pretty rare. And that season I would race for 3 years on the same boat, basically. I think I switched a few times, but I finally just started getting that itch because I always thought sailing was expensive.
I mean, generally,
and it's kind of like golf, like you can get into it for relatively inexpensive. You can go and get a nice set of clubs for cheap at a vintage store if you really just want to get into it. Yeah. But if you want to actually start getting serious, that's when you can start, upgrading. You start realizing that, there's a reason I pay money for things. But you can buy, a sailboat, even if it's only like a 16-footer or 19-footer for like a few $100s.
Really? A
few hundred, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I bought a 25-footer, which is slightly bigger than what I raced on because I prioritize that boat for more of a hangout / learning sailing, not just speed. Yeah. I just wanted to learn why the sails did what they did or, how to change them going in different winds and things like that. And there's a big difference within the two, the 3 feet that's on that boat. It generally is the cabin size. I've got a little galley in mine, so I've been on there cooking steaks and making drinks and things like that, and it's a lot of fun. It's nothing overly luxurious, but it is really nice. And a 22-foot's definitely meant for racing or just going out for the day or something like that. So, but it's not as expensive once again as I thought. And when I started looking into it, especially the secret to buying a cheap boat is go to the marinas and ask who hasn't paid their boat fees in 10 years. And then be like... And they're like, we just need this boat gone. Yeah. It's just sitting here.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. And so that's basically what I did. And I got a dang good deal on a boat in Lake Keystone from some brothers who just didn't want to... Yeah. Who just were getting out of it. Just didn't want to pay for the boat fees anymore. And then go into Lake Hefner? Yep. Yeah. So the boat I got... Terrible story. The boat's awesome. Yeah. The trailer it came with was made for maybe a 19-foot boat. And I'm not, I pulled trailers. My friend has a ranch. I've helped him there. My friends, have trailers. I've helped them and things like that. But I'm not super experienced. So I had my dad come out with me. And we got the boat loaded and everything like that. This boat is hanging off this trailer by I mean, it's far uncomfortable to look at. So we end up getting it hooked up. My dad's driving, and he's getting tired of going 45 miles per hour. Yeah. So I remember him, trying to rev it up to 55, and all I see is this boat fishtail. My dad's, beautiful truck is shaking back and forth, and my dad stops, gets out of the car. He's like, we're not doing that again. Because I'm following him in my Jeep. I'm just watching everything in the back, and I'm like, I just thought I lost my dad and my boat all in one go. So we drove 45 miles per hour on the turnpike from basically Tulsa to Oklahoma City. Oh. It took about 3 hours, and the worst part was we saw other boats, like speedboats that are much smaller than mine, on much bigger trailers, and my dad was like, this is my son's boat. It's not mine. Judge him. It was very funny. And we finally got it back, and I bought a new trailer for it, and it works great now. But that was probably the longest, scariest drive I've ever watched. It was
great life memories and great memories with Dad.
Yeah, great bonding memories with Dad. My dad said never again ask me to pull that thing. And so I had to get my brother to help me next time.
Yeah. Has he been out on the boat?
My dad, I got him out once, and he enjoyed it. Right. We used to live near a lake in Anderson in South Carolina. We would go on the water all the time, but recently we haven't not a big water family recently. But then it was nice to get my mom and him out. We just went out, had a nice leisurely sail. It was good. My brother's been on the boat quite a bit, and it's been a great community thing. I'll just reach out to people like, hey, going out, do you want to come out with me? And most of the time it's like, yeah, I'd love to.
Got a little time, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go back to you. One thing you said was a highlight was the gallery. Now, is that because do we still have Lightbox? Is that still a thing?
Yep, Lightbox still a thing. Yep.
So Lightbox is still a thing, which we'll touch on that in a little bit. But let's talk about the gallery. Where was it? How many photographs? What did it feel like to be, like you said, like this is my profession now. All of these are like my work.
Yeah.
How's that?
So the gallery that I was. The biggest gallery I've been in right now is JRB. It's right there at the bottom of Paseo. So if you know all the little strip of Paseo, it kind of curves down. It's that big one with the giant rabbit outside. Okay. So that's kind of what I would consider one of the bigger galleries in Oklahoma, just in this area. And so it's always been a stepping stone of mine to go from guy who sells prints and stuff at his own art shows that I've had to fund myself and things like that, to this gallery actually accepts my work to be hanging in with all these other artists with high price tags and some recognition to their name, and here's me just excited to be in the gallery. And also I found that photography is not always considered an art form to a lot of people. Like, people still consider art sculptures, paintings, things like that, but photography still is kind of new into being this, I can actually pay for this and be an artwork and be be an actual collectible piece. Mm-hmm. And so getting my work, which is photography, and it's not just a landscape or an animal photo. It's like my work into a gallery was very unique for me.
Yeah, well, and also the subject too. Like, it's really cool for whoever it is you were shooting to be in that.
I'm in the gallery. Yeah.
Like, that's someone sees value in the art, right? The creative side of whatever it is, the scene.
And as a photographer who sells prints like I do, it gives you so much more validation whenever you say, my work's in a gallery. Yeah. Go check it out here.
Yes.
Instead of just saying, check out my website. Now, a website's great. There's nothing wrong with a website. But as soon as you can put it in a physical location that actually is, it's known and meant to sell artwork, it's like, instead of buying a couch off Facebook Marketplace, you go to Mathis Brothers or something. It's like what you're gonna buy is probably gonna be pretty good.
Right?
Yeah, it's reputable.
Yeah. How's the local sort of the local people that are doing the same thing as you? How's the scene here in Oklahoma for artist type photographers?
Limited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of have a pretty niche market here in Oklahoma.
I think no one does what I do as good as I do. And I think it's because I just have my own style. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of people with their own styles here, which is cool. And I think that's the best part about Oklahoma is no one's really, from what I know, I'm really terrible on keeping up with social media. And so I could be wrong, but from what I understand is there's not a lot of people trying to copy too many people. And that's the best part. So I feel like my market is pretty secure in terms of what I'm going for, just because of what I do. is my own. Yeah.
Talk to me about Lightbox. I don't think definitely didn't have that when you did the podcast last.
Yeah. Lightbox just is it's a studio that I opened up in 2020 or 2021. It's our first opening date that allows photographers to book a space to work if they don't have their own studio. And we try, I say we because I've got a business partner, and it's a friend, business partner that I've known for years at this point. So we opened up in February 2021. We're still going. I've got a client in there right now, which is really cool. But it's just a space for photographers to book how many hours they need. We have like a limited amount of gear for people to use if you don't have any gear. So if you're not used to, shooting in a studio environment, you don't have a light, then we have some lights for them to use, backdrops, props, things like that.
Yeah. So just a real need for it.
Yeah. Anybody can go in there and take a pretty good photo. Even our house lights, we made sure are flicker resistant, so you can shoot video in there, no problem. So even if you didn't know how to set up a light, we have people walk in there just to, take a photo of their phone.
Cool. The other thing I noticed you've been doing is kind of producing some music videos.
Yeah.
Some, like director's roles, with our mutual friends, which has been fun to watch.
Yes. I used to shoot a ton of commercials. Like I would be the person behind the camera, and I had a great time doing that. It was fun. I said I burnt out eventually on it. I did. But what I found out that I loved is directing and having a concept and creating the concept and then working with a team to make that concept happen. So and that's another thing that I grew on, photography, videography, whatever it is working with teams instead of trying to do everything myself. I think it's probably the number one thing that gave my work more value and quality is working with people who are better than me at like their, crafts.
That's the key, right? Is finding people around you that can elevate you and then adding your skills to theirs.
I think that's the one thing that social media killed is collaboration, because everyone's like, I can do it myself. I can get a really good camera like this and do everything myself. But what you don't understand is, I have makeup artists who can do things that I couldn't even imagine. I've got no idea. Hairstylist, even videographers, as much as I feel comfortable behind a camera, I shot my first short film a couple years back, and I had a guy come in, because we shot it on a 1980s film Super 16 camera, which is really, really cool. No idea how to operate it. So I was like, I need you to come in. So it was really cool to have his opinion, his skill set. Well, I was like, this is what I want, and I got to work with the actors and things like that. And that was the first set that I really did a big production like that. Then I kind of transformed that into my photo shoots.
Because you've done some music videos, right?
Yeah. For I was working with Zonley recently, and he's been wanting to produce a lot of music videos, and so we've been working on concepts. He'd tell me his general idea, and then we would sit down and just kind of figure out and discuss how we could make that work.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's been my favorite thing. I love the creative aspect. I think that's the one thing that I'm really good at, is having a unique creative idea that gets the main points across, and then however you want to capture it, whether it's your phone camera or an actual professional team, it's like, I can find a way to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, it's also like super fun to create with friends.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, friends of ours that like are creative in music, videography, like,
and everyone's got their own ideas, talents, and everyone just comes together and make one big awesome project.
So good.
Yeah, that's been one of the most fun. They gave me a megaphone, which was a huge mistake.
Do you have a director's chair?
Oh yeah, a huge mistake. I'm over here they're next to me, and I'm still with the megaphone here. Yeah. They gave me far too much power on the last two music videos, but I think it went well. And I do my best as a director. I think the one thing that my job became was making sure the idea stayed true to what it was supposed to be. Because, we can sit down and plan forever, but on set, I'm sure you've been on some bigger sets, everyone starts coming up and having ideas like, what if we tried this and this? And there's a certain point where you're like, that's a great idea. Yeah. We don't have time for it.
Not tonight.
Yeah, not tonight. So I almost had to act like the producer. It's like, we have money and time on the line right now. We've got to get these ideas we planned on doing. If we've got time, maybe afterwards.
Yeah.
And you got to do it as professional and keep everyone in good spirits the entire time. And that's been really, really fun. And I think that's the area when it comes to videography that I think I would want to transition into more of, is directing, or at least creative directing.
Yeah. It's all creative, isn't it? Like, that's the good part about it, is that it's all creative work, whether it's video, whether it's photography, whether it's painting, artwork, drawing. Like, it's all some form of being creative. And also when you talk about your sailing too, like you have to be creative there because you're not just pushing an engine button and steering. You're with the wind, creating all the other stuff. So that's nice to kind of, constantly keep your mind moving, thinking other ways, and then drawing inspiration from travel, from all the other stuff. But the main project at the moment is your photography book. That's more than okay. Yeah. And you traveled a lot around the state, and people can go to your social media and check the little kind of highlight reel you've put up of just what the project means. Yeah. But I would love to share about where the idea comes from, and then just how many locations, how many shoots did you do? Like what's the project?
Yeah. So the project, this project has been in the works for over probably about 5 years at this point. Okay. It's something that's I've wanted to do, but it took a long time to really narrow down how I was going to make it happen and make it feasible to either shoot, and then also what the content was even going to be. It's like, I want to do photos of Oklahoma. Well, how do I do that? And I had all these other ideas, and I'm like, they're great ideas, but they're not going to work commercially or for everyone. So I'm like, how can I make this as widespread as possible? And so the idea started because I remember being in a train in Virginia, and I was talking to a friend, and or not a friend, I was with a friend talking to just a stranger next to me. I think it was like a 2-hour old train ride and whatnot, and we were just talking about where we're from. I think they said Virginia. I'm like, this place is beautiful. I've never really spent time here. This, a scenic train ride, whatever. And I was like, I'm from Oklahoma. And they're like, oh, cool. Ask me about it and things like that. And the one question they asked me that really stuck out, and it's the main reason this book is even happening, is they asked me if we had grass here. And they were so sincere about it. Like, I wish they were just, making fun of Oklahoma. Yeah. In a way, I guess they were, because they were so unknowing of the fact of what Oklahoma even looks like. I'm imagining they probably think, I grew up with Westerns and things like that and whatnot, but that's not even in Oklahoma most of the time. So people think of that, I think. And so it struck me that people not from Oklahoma have no idea what Oklahoma looked like. And then the even worse problem was, people from Oklahoma don't know what Oklahoma looks like. Yeah. Because, I grew up hiking in South Carolina just as a kid. Family activity, we would all go hiking in the mountains and stuff like that. When I moved here, kind of did the same thing. We're like, let's go check out the caves in Freedom, Oklahoma, or the Wichita Mountains, or the sand dunes, or the salt plains and things like that. So my parents and I and my brother, we'd all go out and go to these hiking. And I'm like, wow, Oklahoma is really cool. Now do you have to drive, 2+ hours to go see something from if you live in Oklahoma City? Yeah, but at least we've got it, right? And I'll tell people that, like, oh, by the way, we're going to go do photographs in, say the Wichita Mountains. They're like, what do you mean the Wichita Mountains? I'm like, what do you mean the Wichita Mountains? You don't know about the massive mountain range we have here? And even some of the, almost every time we go on location for a photo shoot, especially for this project, the model talent, whoever I'm working with, is like, I had no idea this was here. I didn't know that Oklahoma had a feature like this. Yeah. Like I did a photo shoot in Quartz Mountain, and we came up on this beach area on the other side of, I can't remember the lake's name right now. And for one, I didn't know the beach was there. Like I remember on the other side of Quartz Mountain seeing it. I'm like, oh, that could be kind of cool. So I drove around and I looked at it. I was like, oh my God, like there's just this like beautiful, scenery here. And so I think everyone's shocked to know that Oklahoma has so much stuff. So anyway, that's where the book actually came from. It's just the unknowing from locals, and just people out of the state. And so I wanted to create a book that was more than just, taking photos of landscapes, because I think there's already some beautiful landscape photography out there, and people have already done that justice. I wanted to do what I do best and create concepts, create something fun, and just, do something a little bit new.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it, right? It's like you get to take Oklahoma, but you get to put your spin on it. Yeah. And then create this book. How many shoots, how many pages, how many, talents? Tell me about that. I'm aiming to do somewhere around 200 pages. Okay.
Which is the biggest photo book I've ever done. Yeah. The last book I did was Ghost, and it was only 20 photographs. Okay. About 40 pages. So this one's going to be about 200 pages. And I'm still in the process of working out now on terms of final photographs, but we're coming out to be somewhere around 250 to 300. Yeah. I mean, it's becoming way more than I expected. And the reason I'm trying to keep it down is mainly price. I'm so everything's mostly self-funded. And I'm self-publishing as well. So, the bigger the book, the bigger the pricing. However, I just had, because the selfish part of me wanted to see all of these pictures big, I wanted to do this photo book as a 12 by 12, which is going to be the biggest book I've ever done. And it's the biggest self-publishing book that I found I could do reasonably. Yeah. I just love big photographs. I love printing big. I love seeing the images big. You can see all the detail. The reason I shoot film is because of all the scanning techniques that you can do to get better detail, better images, better colors, things like that. And I can just, you didn't ask, but I'll say it. Film is better than digital. Quality-wise, everything like that. And I like to give the example is like most cameras can shoot around 4,000 to 5,000 pixels. If you're a camera guy, you probably know what that means. I can do something called a drum scan on a film camera, and I can get to 15 to 20,000 pixels easily. Yeah. And that's an easy scan. And so that means you can zoom in as long as you want, and you're never running out of quality. So the reason I love film is because you can get that sort of quality and put it in a photograph, and then I can put it in a book, and then now everyone gets to experience all this detail. You can really delve into images that way, and I really love that. But talent, I tried to work with as many people as possible, because I generally work with the same group of people because I just, there's a comfortable factor. They kind of get the process. They understand shooting with film and how long it might take. And it's just a very ease of use factor at that point. And also I like the people I work with. Everyone's fantastic. But for this book, I didn't want it to be filled with the same faces, same figures, whatever it was. So I tried to get as many new people as I could find. Now there are going to be some repetitive people because once again, I have some people that I work well with. But for the most part, I tried to find different, whether they were models, talent members, or just people that I've interacted before, and I liked their look. I wanted to try and build a story in one of the environments that Oklahoma has, and just create a little piece. Yeah. And each person, so each location gets about 4 pages. Okay. And I'm trying to build out right now. Most of the pages are going to be full, bleed pages, so edge to edge, and then there's going to be a few like pages that have just maybe 4 photographs on one page kind of deal. So that's how it can start adding up into images, but not pages. Is there
going to be like a little bit of context in writing, like location, model, little story? Like, what's the plan with that?
Yeah, so in the back of the book, I am going to have an index where all the locations, all the people that helped on the project, like Stock and Bond allowed me to shoot in their restaurant for a kind of a higher class shoot I was trying to aim for, and that was really nice of them. They were very sweet to work with, and so in the back of the book, I'm going to make sure I have their name back there on top of a QR code that goes to my website that has actual physical links that go to kind of everybody's pages. So I'm doing my best, since this is kind of a whole Oklahoma effort at this point. I'm trying to make sure I give everyone as much credit as possible, and ease to find who helped out on the project. Whether it's people who's just giving me money to sponsor the book, or if it's a location that gave me either a good deal or just let me shoot there, and just people who have helped on the project in general.
How many locations?
Oh man, I don't know. I really don't know. I've been to just about every type of biome that Oklahoma has. Okay. From the salt plains, sand dunes, mountains, waterfalls, plains, different mountains. Like we have multiple mountain ranges, and so I really have no idea how many. I need to get through and there's a lot of locations that aren't really like state parks. So I've been shooting in a lot of state parks, but then there's also a lane showed me this really cool railroad bridge, the old kind of architecture, the arches and everything like that, and we shot over there, but I have no idea really where it's at. I think it's somewhere near Fairfax, Oklahoma. Okay. I can tell you that. But I don't know how many locations, but there's a lot. I mean, every image looks different and unique, which is really, really cool, because that is the point, to showcase the vastness that Oklahoma has.
Yeah. What surprised you so much about this project?
Probably how little people know about Oklahoma. I think that would be the number one thing. I mean, so all of these locations I've been to at least once or twice. I love hiking, love getting out, love nature, and so that'll be kind of what I do to take a break from everything. Is so I've been to all of these places, and it surprises me that people from Oklahoma haven't even been to the places that are right next to them.
Yeah. Nobody wants to get out. Or people probably, because they're unaware of it, they think they've got to drive a long way to get there.
Yeah.
And even if you just drive an hour from where you're at, which most people can do, amazing things you'll see.
Yeah, and like even if you see a landscape of it, it almost feels, it can sometimes even feel unattainable sometimes. It's like you can just see the landscape, it looks so vast and big, and maybe that person hiked hours to get to this spot. What I've tried to do with my work is to make it feel like I'm just capturing someone enjoying whatever the environment is. Yeah, very natural. So there's a vineyard that we shot at, and the photo shoot was basically, I said, hey, here's a basket of grapes, take them and pick some more grapes. Yeah. And those were the photographs. Like, I try to make it as accessible and realistic as possible. And of course, there's like, the images are sexy, fun. I tried to put my spin and style on it, but I tried to make it as realistic as possible, so someone could see this landscape, see a person in it, and just imagine themselves there.
Yeah. What would you then, to that point of your spin and style, how do you put your spin and style into words? If someone's like, hey, what do you shoot?
That's always puzzled me, because to me, what I shoot is very normal. If you look at old photographers like Richard Avedon and Herb Ritts, Helmut Newton, they shot for Vogue back in the time, Rolling Stones, all this stuff. It's just normal photography for me. So whenever everyone's like, define your style, I'm like, it's just photography to me. And it's not until social media started, making things not, I don't want to say not high quality, but not like to the standard of what it used to be, to where everyone had to start saying, oh, I'm a portrait photographer, oh, I'm a landscape photographer, oh, I shoot ladybugs professionally. It's like, I just do, photography.
Yeah. Of people.
I do people photography.
Yeah.
It can be considered, provocative. I'm trying to find the right words, but I think provocative.
Go to your Instagram.
I guess provocative might be. Even the photos of you. You weren't obviously dressed in anything other than a suit, but you were very classy and very intense. I think. Yeah. And I think I try to document, not necessarily. Like that photo I told you I loved of you so much, and you're like, it's your least favorite one. It's because you said you had your neck rolls, and I'm like, you look so grizzled. Like you look like, I don't really always go for that perfect glamour shot. I try, if I'm trying to take a beautiful photo, I'm going to take a beautiful photo. If I'm trying to take a raw photo, it's going to be raw. If I'm trying to take, a very, masculine photo or something very grizzled, it's like, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like,
it's not the perfect smiling.
Even though I don't portray the, don't mess with me look at all, because that's not who I am, that photo definitely is like,
that's it. Yeah. It gave me this, very Daniel Craig James Bond.
That's the best compliment I've ever heard.
You're welcome. I mean, white suit, black tie, Maserati, right? Beautiful
Aston
house,
Martin.
Aston Martin. I just, played so well.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was a one-off, right? It's fun for me to do, and the story with the jacket, that it was my granddad's, and just the whole thing there. Photography for people has such a great meaning, and especially for me when that, it's so personal. And I have a photo of my granddad on my mantelpiece of my granddad and my gran, and he's in that jacket.
Oh,
and
wow.
And I haven't printed any of mine, but I just that's, and everyone's different, right? And that's why, I like doing. It's fun to do photography shoots, right?
Yeah.
Especially your one-offs like that. And we've talked about ideas back and forth, and we'll definitely do more. But it's fun for, not just for me, just to be like, I have an idea. I'm not going to be like someone who's like every month, hey, let's do this, right? But every now and then I'm like, I have an idea, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And then just to collaborate that way, especially for me as someone on the client side, it's like, this was so much fun to do, right? And we had a blast. Mikey and Kylie were out there. We were there for 2 hours in front of this awesome house taking photos to look like James Bond. Like, it was a fun experience.
Yeah.
You get to do this all the time.
That is the kind of photography I love. Like, I've, there's a time and place to just get that nice, smiling portrait, but there's enough people who are good enough at that I really like to be the guy who's there to say, you know what, let's do something a little more. Mm-hmm. Let's, it doesn't have to be anything super intense. We don't have to get a nice car or a big house, but let's do something more than just smile in front of the camera. Let's actually, show a little bit of emotion. Maybe it's something that's not what you would normally show. Like you said, you're not normally that grizzled character, but in that photo, you definitely look like it. Mm-hmm. And like, I find that really, really cool. I find creating images to just showcase another side of a person, even if they're just playing a character, is fun and unique to do.
Yeah. I've got on my Instagram, I've sent you a bunch of these too. Like, I just scroll, photos, and I save a bunch of ones. I'm like, I'd like to do like a similar shoot to this. And that, a lot of the inspiration came from obviously the James Bond shoot.
Yeah.
It was from looking at photos of Daniel Craig and like that aesthetic. But that's the good thing too, is you can draw all these inspirations now. We have it in our pocket of all this, like,
I've had to stop doing that.
Yeah.
I just recently, I turned off all notifications for Instagram. I kept it there because I still, I promote and get messages and stuff like that. But I've tried to stop getting my inspiration from social media. And I've been trying to buy more photo books, which I've been, I've been doing this for years at this point, but I've really been trying to hone into doing that because I think, I would rather take inspiration from someone who's successful, not just a photograph that someone,
Well, and also in today's world, you don't even know if it's real in all AI.
That is true.
That's the scary part.
Yeah, don't get me started. Yeah, there's a time and place for AI for sure.
Definitely.
But
well, awesome, dude. This has been a pleasure. Thanks for coming in and talk about your project. Excited to get it kicked off. Excited to kind of send people your way for them to see it. And obviously, you're still in the process of putting it together, so it's coming soon. TBD on date. But where can people go follow you? Where's your website? And then talk about a little Lightbox if someone's listening too that want to rent your space.
You can check out my website primarily is where I try and keep everything the most up to date, and that's just jaredkinley.com. And I have a tab for the More Than Okay project, and I actually just opened up pre-orders today. So if it's something someone's interested in, they can pre-order it. And then there's just all the information over that as well. My social media is jared.kinley. Social media doesn't like my work, so you have to really type it in to get to my account.
They've shadow banned you?
Oh man, like every day. Like it just happens all the time. So that's why I primarily keep website, newsletters, things like that. But see everything there, see the project there. If you're a photographer or just a creative or anyone who needs a location for a few hours or whole day, the Lightbox, you can check it out, lightboxokc.com or just lightboxokc on Instagram. And you can book a place. Try to keep it as automated as possible. You just go on, click a time, it blocks it off, and that's your time.
Happy days. Great spot. I've been there. We shot the
your podcast. That was another one of my favorite photos. Mm-hmm. Taking, an idea of a podcast and making it a little bit more like WWE wrestler. Yeah,
like Bruce, what's his name? Who's the UFC and Bruce something? Anyway, Bruce Bember maybe? No. Anyway, it's a great photo. And that was shot on an old school camera too. Cause that was the 4x. Don't move. I need just an hour of your stillness for one photograph. Don't blink. Try not to blink the whole time.
Yeah, I love that photo.
But it came out super awesome. That was on a, I don't think it was on a cover, but it was in a magazine. Someone asked me for a magazine. But it was like they were doing a profile on me in the podcast. And like, send me a photo you like. And I sent them that. I was like, yes.
Yes. Yeah. See, way better than just a smiling photo, right?
Yeah, definitely. One of my favorite photographers is Greg Williams.
Yeah.
he's one of my favorite followers on Instagram because he's just like gets people in their natural habitat, and it's generally at award shows.
Yeah.
But he takes some epic photos.
Well, the idea of portrait photography for me is just, I would rather talk to someone for an hour and then do a 5-minute photo, 30-second photo. Mm-hmm. You just get comfortable, you get to know the person instead of, everyone's had that experience of walking in for a photo and they're like, all right, stand here, and you're just like, oh, God.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So he does a great job of making people feel comfortable.
Well, dude, thanks for coming in. Appreciate you. For people listening, I'll put all the links to the website and social medias in the description down below. You go right there and go pre-order the More Than Okay photo book. It's going to be 12 by 12.
Yes.
A lot of images, a lot of great scenery, and it just shows Oklahoma isn't flat.
It's not flat.
It has grass.
Yeah,
so,
we do have grass.
It's awesome.
A couple.
Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.